Hello everybody. Welcome back to our session on the 5th CI Impact Summit. And I'm going to quickly explain the theme of our discussion today with the panelists. The topic is investing for future. So we always decide on investing on equities, on the portfolio, but also we need to invest in our youth, in the next generation for the future of the planet and humanity. So this is the topic, and we have a great panelists for this. Before introducing the panelists, I just want to share my personal experience. I'm a mother myself. I have a daughter of 19 years old. She graduated from the ISEDAL 2 years ago. Since she's 14 years old, she volunteered in Africa, in India, in Chile, and she made the choice to study in the university, the international development. So why this is happening? Because this is happening because we provided education through childhood until this age to do something good for the world. The school provided that education, so we created these fundamentals. Now she's going to grow up, she's growing, and she's going to do something good for the planet and humanity. And we have some topics here we want to discuss about politics, about how the youth are seen by the adults. One point that she mentioned to me when we were going through these discussions, she said that whatever we do, adults are blaming us. So this is how I want to start. It is really touching my heart, this topic. And now I'm introducing our panelists, and I'm going to let the 4 students to discuss these topics together. I'm honored to have His Serene Highness Prince Michael of Lichtenstein in our panel today. And then we have 2 students from International School of Zug and Luzern, Selina, Rezk and Fabrizio Frener. They are also part of the youth room in Switzerland that I believe they are going to talk about. And we have 2 students from Kantonschule Zug, Milan, Banerjee and Joël Christmann. So now I'm leaving the stage to His Serene Highness Prince Michael of Liechtenstein to start the panel, and I'm going to listen to the debate between the youth and him. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, and thank you for inviting me, and good afternoon to everybody, especially to my co-panelists, and I very much look forward talking with them. Now, I have not one daughter, I have 2 daughters. They are now a bit older, they're around 30. And I think just saying the best thing actually parents can give in their education to their children so that they are successful. And you can only be good for the community if you are successful yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to become a CEO, etc., but that you are doing something useful. I think one thing young people have to learn very much, and this is mostly the example of the parents, is the notion of responsibility. Responsibility to yourself, and that you're responsible basically for your life. Another one is the notion of respect. Respect before other people, respect before institutions, respect of the world. And with this respect, it comes tolerance. You have to be tolerant. And I think one thing is very important, and it's today very important, because we are now in a time where many people say there is no alternative. No, there's always an alternative. And therefore, you have to have tolerance for the opinion of other ones. And one of the most important things, one of the philosophers of the 18th century said, You know, I totally disagree with what you are saying, but I would give my life that you have the right to say it. I think this is also a very important thing for your life. And another important thing is curiosity. Curiosity that you try to find out things, that you have your own thinking, uh, your own um, reflections, and it's not that you say, okay, that's right because everybody says it. This is a very dangerous thing that everybody says it, because then you are prey to propaganda. And I think I want to stop there, because I think there are certain topics prepared, and I would be very curious, and I don't want sort of to pre-take a discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So the topics that I would like now our new generation coming to talk about is youth and politics, youth and impact, youth and future. So I will let them to speak now, maybe we start with Selina Rezk. If you want to put your thoughts together, maybe you have each 3 minutes, and then we'll start the discussion that way going forward. Thank you.
Sounds good. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me here. It's a great honor to get to speak with you all. So I guess to start off, politics today seems to be a touchy subject. A lot of people are very divided, and we see that among the youth we're very active and we want to make a change, but at times it feels that we're not taken very seriously, or that we don't have as much life experience. And I think a lot of people, they share so much of what they believe on social media that sometimes it's hard to make up your own opinion. Especially, well, I was kind of seeing this TED talk the other day about Daryl Davis, so a black man in the US, and he actually became friends with a KKK leader. Now, I was very surprised when I heard this, because nowadays we feel so divided, it's hard to even imagine such a thing coming true. But he was saying that it all happened with respect, that they had respect for each other and they had a conversation and were able to listen to the other person. I think this is something we lack today. We're very impatient and we just want people to believe what we believe without taking time to understand why it is people think the way they think. Maybe they have a point, maybe they absolutely don't, but it's important to just try to listen. So I think that's kind of my opinion, I guess, on politics today.
Okay, thank you so much. What do you think the solution would be, Selina, for that?
Well, I think the solution would be to start having conversations. I think like the best thing to do is if everyone can just start having discussions one-to-one. I mean, it's obviously hard nowadays, but using the technology for good and not for bad, in a sense. Nowadays it's really used for advertisement, and again, like capitalism, it's not, in a sense, I mean, like it's all money targeted, right? Even the advertisements, it's all like this, but we can try to use it to connect like we are today, which is what
Wonderful. Thank you. So now I would like to give this speech to Milan from Kantonschule. Maybe you can give some thoughts of yourself about politics or impact world, or even the current pandemic. What was the impact to the youth, you think, of that the pandemic?
So first of all, also thanks for having me. So if I start with politics, I mean, if you look at politics in the way of government and everything, it's a lot of power what they have. And a lot of this power is used for stuff that aren't needed, mostly also because of money, because money drives people to do stuff. And I think you can use the power of politics for better stuff. But many people that give examples of what you can do, they aren't taken seriously, as Selina said, because, for example, we are children in that way, many people say. And I just think about the politics part, that they have, I mean, politicians have power dependingly a lot, and yet they still sometimes just don't use it correctly. But now to COVID-19 or the coronavirus, I think it has impacted us in very different ways, because so individually it's different for people. There are people who anyway don't talk a lot, aren't very social, dependingly, you could say, and it doesn't impact them that much. But then there are people who talk, I mean, who have a lot of conversations, know many people, and then they just have to like shut off from the world. And it's different for everyone, but in the way how I see it, like what we want from it is, I mean, people say the climate has become better, what is true, but the thing is, it's going to go bad again if we go back to how we were. So I think we should learn from what we won from the coronavirus and keep that and make it better. Like keep the climate how it is and slowly start making it better and better, and not going back to how we were before, because before we weren't doing a very good job.
Yeah, actually, wonderful. Thank you so much for that comment, because we have seen when we look at the nature, you know, with the COVID, we see that the nature started to wake up and then clean themselves and regenerate. So this was a, you know, nice thing to see, you know, parallel to all these things happening at the same time. Now I would like to give the bit speech to His Serene Highness Prince Michael of Liechtenstein to comment on the two topics. If you would like to add, you know, the adult side of things, how you see the comments here.
You know, it's easy always to say I agree, but I very much understand what was said, and I think this first thing is for debate. Debate is something which is very important. But it should be kept in a way of respect, and you have to have the personal sovereignty to also admit that somebody else might be right. And I think this is very important. And you might also have, there might be perfectly decent, very good, very nice people you're not of the same opinion with. And I think this has to be accepted. And I think Selina saw it very rightly. It is, there are always alternatives. And if you meet somebody who says there is no other alternative than this decision, you should be very careful. And this is something which happens today when it's the preferred word of the German Chancellor, for instance. There is no other alternative. We have to go this way. But this goes also in many other fields. So I think there is the reflection necessary with tolerance, with thinking. And it's also, if we say there's no alternative, it shows also a lack of creativity. So I think this is very important, and talking, and you know, you don't get all the ideas just by sitting in the room talking, thinking with yourself. You need to talk and also to accept other opinions. I think this is very important. That is also very important in politics. And if you want to keep it something equitable, you need this competition of ideas. I think this is very important, and you have to tolerate. Now, on the second thing, it was basically, yes, we have now a big disruption. We have a crisis. And I think the message is we should use this crisis. And I think you wanted to come back to the theme of the pandemic later on, the pandemic itself. Yeah. So I will not talk about that. But it can be used that, for instance, we were living a bit differently for a few weeks, etc. And I think we should reflect what was good there and what was less good. And we will come to that. And we can see that sometimes such a crisis helps to really improve certain certain issues. Unfortunately, I don't see, besides locking down, so much movement at the moment. Oh, and the problem is also, yes, the European Commission says we will spend that much money now for the green economy. But you can't solve problems with throwing money which is given without charge to you by the European Central Bank on the problem.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
And this is not a very responsible politics. And I think there it is necessary that everybody thinks, well, what can be done also in the smaller areas? What can be done to improve that, to have less pollution, to have a cleaner environment, and what can I do in this direction?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now I'm going to ask Fabrizio to put his thoughts and to share his thoughts with us on the same topics again, on the future, on the politics. What do you think the challenges are between adults and the youth?
Well, the way I view youth and their potential involvement in politics and other topics as well is I believe that today's youth, they will obviously be the leaders of tomorrow. And I do believe for that very reason, for the fact that we will live in the world which is being shaped today, I think for that reason, it is perfectly within the domain of today's youth to get involved and to ask questions, to maybe challenge certain views, systemic views that are being held by the government or being held by people in charge or large corporations. And I agree with a sentiment that was brought up earlier in this debate already, is that because we are youth, because we are children, sometimes we're not taken seriously. We're almost discredited simply because we lack the age. And while certainly with age comes a lot more experience, I do believe you should still be allowed to have an important voice when it comes to policymaking and how today's people in charge shape the future and the world of tomorrow. I think a prime example is Greta Thunberg and the movement she has started. It started very locally, and it's branched into a worldwide phenomenon. Where youth from all around the world is now getting involved in climate activism. And I think it's a really inspiring example of how one person, through sheer commitment and through sheer perseverance, was able to spawn such a global movement. And I think if you look at the blueprint that Greta Thunberg laid out, it can be replicated and it can be used by people all over the world to raise awareness for important topics such as climate change, and to get people involved to perhaps force change. I mean, it is pretty remarkable that, again, what started with one young girl, she has now had the opportunity to speak in front of the UN world leaders on worldwide panels. So it's incredible the impact she's had. And I think it's something that should be respected and something that should continue to happen with more and more youth getting involved.
And what do you think, what are the ways you're thinking youth can be contributing to the politics, and they can actually be a positive part to that? What are your expectations? I would say personally, you're speaking on behalf of the youth at the moment.
Well, personally, my expectations are very basic in the sense that I think we ought to be listened to. And I think people in charge ought to take into consideration that the changes they're making now, the policies they're driving now, they might benefit themselves in the short run, but in the long term, they might have adverse impacts on the future, on today's youth, who will be the adults and the leaders of tomorrow. So in that sense, I think it's just more consideration of how policies and how certain pathways will impact how we go on to live in the future.
I understand. I mean, that was one of the comments of my daughter, actually, because she was also, she was walking in Zurich streets, for the climate change and etc. And the idea was that, maybe we will show they will listen to us, they will hear us. But sometimes we just maybe I see the youth in two ways. I'm just opening a bit the debate here. I see one part of youth where there is consciousness, awareness, you know, the planet and humanity is the key. You want to do something amazing for the world to make the changes that you want to see. And then there is another part of the youth that is not worried at all. It's just they just want to live the day they want to live today, and then they are not thinking about the future. So maybe sometimes I'm thinking the politicians or adults or the individuals that are currently making decisions to run the countries, they see that discrepancy, and that's the reason why they don't see that you know, working with the youth is not going to give a result. I mean, this is really I'm just putting out there this type of comment so that we can go through it. What do you think about that? And then Fabrizio, you were talking about it, and maybe I give the speech now to Joël. Maybe he can also make some comments on that, what he thinks for those ideas.
So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this conversation or this debate. So I think Fabrizio has a good point what he's saying. Like it is important to include the youth to the politics and stuff. Like, for example, this debate is a good example for such an inclusion to the politics. I think that should be a bit more common, such meetings or such conversations between adults and childs. Mm-hmm. And I think it got better during the time. Maybe I think you could also do more in school for mm-hmm. something. But, well, I don't know how it is in the international school. Just at Kantonschule Zug, it isn't that present. Mm-hmm.
When you say presence of understanding how politics work, you know, how you know, the countries are managed, you know, what is that what you mean? More on the learning or learning to you know, to contribute actually to the community together with the adults, you know, sharing something and contribute that way, and that type of learning. What do you mean by that?
I think it's both. So like it's to be able to like debate in really and give points and arguments and stuff, you have to know something about the world, how it works, politics and stuff. And so you need both basically. And yeah.
So at the end, it comes back to education, similar to what His Serene Highness Prince Michael of Lichtenstein mentioned at the beginning as well. The education is from the very young age to later on is very important. I think that's where the consciousness comes, and to work together. Is that something that we can say as your last, you know, comment?
I think yes, because many people don't really participate if they don't get like a kick into that whole world. Maybe they don't even think that's an option for them. So I think education, because it's an obligation to get educated. I think it's important. It would be an important thing to focus more on that.
Yeah. Is anybody has any other questions, or should I continue? Do you want to add anything to these discussions we are having now? Should we move on to?
You know what I would like to say shortly on that. This, I think, as a parent, and you had it as well, I don't know whether I learned more from my daughters or they learned more from me. You know, this is a way where you have a sort of a sounding board, and you have to go with them. You know, you have to listen to them, and it gives you a lot of ideas. And I think this was very well said by the two persons. Now, there is one word which Fabrizio used, which I don't like particularly, that's the word leader. Because when you call yourself a leader, and politicians do it now, you make a distance to the other ones. And I think this is, and you know, you can't translate it in German, because in German it has a horrible connotation, the leader. And there was one there, and that was so I think, and for instance, when the G20 heads of states meet, we say we the leaders. I don't want them to be my leaders. So I think that it needs a bit humility, but we have one thing, and I think this has with our issue of party politics, that we got a big distance between politics and the population, and therefore also between politics and the youth. And I think this is also a question of responsibility. It's a responsibility of parents and education institutions to interest the young ones. The education institution should not form them, because otherwise, but interest the young ones in it. And the young ones should be listened, and they have the responsibility. It's also a responsibility for them to inform themselves. I know it's difficult because you get a lot of different and a lot of controversial informations, but I think this is very important.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, from my experience, again, I would like to share. You know, we with my daughter, we talk about all these climate change and everything, because she has some kind of education in the past on putting the words out, what she thinks. And actually more this type of discussions are happening. It's an education at the same time, a practice for them to speak up and to show up in the not only staying in their world, but also to show up in the world of you know, older people. So I think it depends on from child to child, and education and family and the school. But at the end, we need to encourage our children from the young age to speak up and to find themselves. And then that's how I think they will be able to easily contribute to any of the topics we are discussing here, either the political views or, you know, impact investing, to do something for the good for the world. And you know, or even technology to use really on the way that Selina was talking about, on the positive way. So I don't know what you think about that. Do you agree, or do you have any other points to add before I move on to another topic?
Actually, if it's possible to add something, I feel that as historian Hayes said, that I feel the youth right now has the interest. I think they just don't fully know how to use that interest properly. And I feel like a lot of people are ignorant. So they think they know politics, but actually I thought I was kind of one of those people until I started taking a politics class at school. And I was like, wow, I actually did not know anything. So I think it's just like, how can they use this interest towards change? I also, like, kind of to earlier, I feel like ignorance breeds fear. And when people have fear, it ignites more conflict and violence. Whereas there are other ways, like the more educated you are on everyone, on all sides, and then there's that little link of how can I not only share my education, but how can I use it to make change, and what exactly do I want to change? So.
And you think, to your point, do you think you need guidance when you come to that? You know, because you say I'm doing, you know, you have some education, politics, and etc. And then you said that at that point you want to make a change. And what would be, in your opinion, to all of you, what will be at that point in time the support to those children or teens, youth overall, to move to the next level, really not wanting to do a change, but actually doing the change?
I say it's kind of with, we have, I mean, we all have power to a certain extent, right? It's not like maybe a president power, but it's still a power that we have, right? So I think we can maybe try to educate the people younger than us. Maybe someone has an idea that we did not think about. We can try to collaborate with people older than us, like teachers, peers, even just by coming here today. And also, I feel like maybe with our purchasing power, right? So we see right now so many fast fashion companies, they're dominating the markets, but they have, some of them have very unethical practices, and they employ people without paying the right amount of money at times, you know? So I feel like if we as youth are aware, the next step would be to start changing our behavior, because when big companies see that the market has shifted from one thing to another, they'll also change to fit within the new market.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful idea. Change of behavior. That's really, to me, is a great conclusion for that topic, I think. One thing I want to talk about is the effect of the pandemic to the youth, because you know, they, from different ages during that pandemic, there was a homeschooling. You know, the way actually teaching changed, the way the, you know, social friendships started to be more, you know, less close, obviously, due to the environment. And how did that impact your life, you know, in terms of you know, health-wise and mentally, you know, how you're feeling under these restriction circumstances? That I would like to hear that from you, because this is something that you know, I never seen in my life, and the same thing for His Serene Highness. You know, we never lived in that situation, and I see my daughter. She was supposed to go to the university in Canada, start university life, and she's not able to. She's doing online teaching at home. So, how do you think that is going to impact your thoughts and your vision and what you want to do going forward, and what type of paths you may want to take as a result? So I would like to hear that from you, and the comments, please, from His Serene Highness on the comments from the 4 students here as well at the same time, please. Thank you.
Well, I think personally it had a significant impact. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime event, which I never thought would ever happen. It seemed like a very abstract topic, but now it is our reality. And the matter of the fact is that from an education point of view, I've noticed that it depends from person to person. There's actually some people who thrive in an environment that they completely control at home. There are some people who struggle, who perhaps need the guidance, who perhaps are restricted by the fact that there are fewer hours you actually get to spend with your subject teachers. And that's something that needs to be taken into account. And I think it's a challenge that education systems around the world have to focus on, is how can we best create the system of learning at home, which can work for everyone and not just for those who thrive in a confined environment. Certainly, it is a lot different. I personally prefer being in school. It's a more productive learning environment. But I do believe you can draw some positives in terms of being connected, in terms of mental health, in the sense that we live, and we have the privilege to live in one of the most connected times in the history of our world, where it is easier to reach out to people, to stay in contact with people digitally. Of course, digital conversations, digital relationships, they're not the same They're not as personal, perhaps, as in-person relationships, but it's good to know that at least there are people in this world who are privileged enough to live such a way, and that would then also beg the question: well, what can we do to ensure that everyone is equal, that everyone can have equal access to technology, that students who are forced to be at home, how Wi-Fi has become such a necessity during this time, but there's a lot of people who still lack, due to financial reasons or other reasons, what has essentially become a commodity, what's become very important. So there's a lot of considerations that go into it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things to think about that this pandemic brought to us. So any other thoughts from the students? What are,
So I guess for me as well, like when I first, it's like very unprecedented time, and I just remember this one comment, like that year, someone said, "Oh, so 2020 is coming. Looks like we're due for a for a recession." And I remember someone said that before it was 2020, and now looking back, I was like, "Oh wow! If only that person knew what was coming." So I kind of, to talk about like the at-home learning, it was definitely hard to adjust to it at first, especially being in like the last 2 years of studying. It's like very important and a lot of pressure, and then like going through, am I going to have my final exams or not, and then having online exams. It was hard to identify the place you're in, because when you're in your room, right, it's where you sleep, but now it was where I was going to school, where I was sleeping, and where I was taking my exams. So it's kind of where, we're starting to realize that, maybe also offices are starting to realize, do we really need an office, or can we just employ our workers from home and the same amount of work is getting done? It opened a lot of questions for me, because for me personally, I became a lot more productive because I was waking up later. So and I guess there was less like in contact class time, but there was a lot more time to complete homework and to revise for things. So it made me think, oh, like maybe we should reconsider our like education system.
Yeah. At the end, you're receiving the education that was planned, and then just adjust to the environment. That was the possibly the solution. So, Milan or Joël, do you have anything to add on this topic?
So,
Milan?
Yeah, okay. So I don't have too much to add, but for me, for example, the pandemic wasn't a big thing. I mean, it was, but like it didn't affect me very much, because I was in my second year last year, and it didn't change a lot. But I think for people who are like coming to the end, doing their main exams to get into universities, for example, for them it was much more difficult, and I myself was not very productive, or much less productive, also because the concentration is missing very much, because like in class you have a teacher who will like tell you to be quiet, concentrate or something, for example, and at home, even though you may be able to do that yourself, it's not there. So like you still sometimes get you can't focus anymore or something, and you are just not in a classroom, you are in the room that you maybe have done, I mean, you play video games in there maybe or something, and it's a distracting environment dependingly, and I think that may have changed how it has been for many people. So that's my idea.
Thank you. Joël, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, well, a bit. So I think it for me it wasn't as well that bad with the homeschooling, but I'm with Milan. It was definitely much more complicated to concentrate and be focused and stuff. I think also that pandemic and the homeschooling time showed how unprepared the schools were, or the school system was for that situation. I mean, of course it was a quick time which everything changed, but I think also for us, I mean, there were many teacher. Some teacher were doing, were giving us the material via
Okay.
Teams. Others were giving it us via Moodle, like a platform where we receive
Yeah.
some exercises. Then we had a teacher doing the live streams on YouTube, also just private live streams. But yeah, and I think it should have been a bit more with the concept and stuff. And maybe that should be, you should be a bit more prepared for maybe something it is happening again. So, well, I mean, it isn't that
Yeah, I understand.
yeah.
Okay. We are coming towards the end. Can I please ask, to do the final, the topic that you would like to mention, for the closure? Because the topic is investing for future, investing in you. So we talked about the training, we talked to other things, but if you have anything to add as a closure sentence, we would love to hear that one, and then we will have the final word from His Syrian Highness to close the panel.
Can you do me a favor and not call me Syrian Highness? It makes it very long.
Okay. So I just wanted to see just the last comment from the youth.
It's not my last comment.
Last one. One sentence. Yeah.
Well, what I could say for my last comment is perseverance is very important. If you want to achieve change, it does not come overnight, be it getting involved politically or raising awareness for global issues such as climate change or the other many issues that are currently facing our planet Earth. I do think perseverance is important. And I believe that with technology, which we have at our hands, social media, we're able to get in contact with so many people, it is perhaps the easiest time to get politically involved. And if people are motivated and have the urge to, they can educate themselves and they can get a variety of different viewpoints.
Yeah, thank you.
I would say that like actions speak louder than words. So maybe instead of sharing a post, which of course it can still be just as important, try to see something you can do, like signing a petition or perhaps starting a club at school to talk more with other people. Take actions and believe in yourself and in others around you to have faith that you can be heard. As Fabrizio mentioned earlier with Greta Thunberg, right? She was just a young girl, and who could have thought that she could have done something so big? But it's belief in herself and a bit of hope that surely helped her get there. Okay. And Milan, just one sentence to the way you want.
So I think connection is very important, because also during the pandemic we had a connection, and Greta Thunberg also made a connection between people that then moved forward, and we changed, or they started changing something. They created awareness, and I think that we move forward together, and not one person goes very far to the front and says, yes, we can do this and this, and the other people disagree and stay behind. So I think that we should move together as one and have a connection.
Thank you. And Joël, from you, the last sentence, please.
I think education is important, but it's important how to teach them, especially how to communicate or say what they think about certain stuff. So like not just teaching them how stuff works, more like teaching them how to get to say what they want, or to say out their mind and stuff.
Yeah, thank you. And last words from His Syrian Highness, please. I know it's a bit long, but I'm so passionate to listen to your youth. So yeah. So.
Okay. I think it was very important. I think it's very good also this discussion to hear that, and that the young people have a voice. And I think if we the older generation try not to think they are not experienced enough, or they should still learn and they should stay. So it is a mistake, because the most important thing you have in your life is to have a purpose, and we should not kill the motivation to have a purpose. And with the four ones who were talking here, they all have a purpose. And I think you should not be discouraged, because sometimes you want to do that. You want to go in a direction of change. It might not work.
Mm-hmm.
But then don't be discouraged. Maybe it didn't work for the right reason. Maybe it didn't work for the wrong reasons. Keep on. And for me, it's sometimes like the like the GMS system. You want to get from here to there, and then you drive, and the car tells you you should go left, but you make a mistake and you go right. Then the system always wants you to bring you back on the right road. And I think so you should also live, you have your purpose. Uh, you want change, and changes are necessary, but doesn't need to change everything, but in certain areas changes are necessary. So don't be discouraged. I know it is sometimes, I wanted to do a lot of things which didn't succeed. Fortunately, I was lucky, I had also things which succeeded. But don't be discouraged about it. If you feel that the older generation doesn't listen to you, I think you have the longer time. You have the advantage of having the longer time, and to come through and to use the time. And I think it's very important, but that you voice yourself in a way that you are heard. I know it's difficult, but to voice. And I think the way all of you talked was pretty clear, was not aggressive, was understanding. And I think this is a good way to do it. And so I hope that there will be quite a few other such discussions, but also activities, as Selina said, activities arising from the discussions. Giving an example, changing yourself, your habits. And maybe the one thing from the pandemic, and I think there are a few lessons which we can have from there. First, I agree, personal contact is very important. I didn't like to having been closed off, etc. I also don't like that we don't meet physically now, but just on the machine, because it would be much better. But this is a fact. But I think the pandemic has shown also one thing which we should have actually for our health systems. We should try to live healthier, to get a stronger immune system. And then we can resist much better to things like the COVID pandemic. That shouldn't mean that we don't have parties. We should have fun. It's good for your brain. It's good for your development. But living healthy is quite important. And I think our medical system, it's now basically a sick care system, should actually rather move to a preventive healthcare system.
Yeah.
But this is again also a personal responsibility of ourselves, because finally we are responsible for our health, for a good part of our health, not everything, but a good part for our health.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know that it was 5 minutes longer than it was planned, but I thought that it's important to share the thoughts and of the different generations to move forward on what we want to achieve. And I would like to close the panel with this comment, and thank you so much for each of you to join and to spend the 55 minutes here with us. and to contribute to the discussion.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.